Thank you. Thank you very much for staying with KBC Channel 1. You are watching BizCheck. And my name is Betty Kiptum. Lensa Odingo is my colleague on the sign language interpretation for this second hour of the program. And in the second hour, we shall be talking about quantity surveying in Kenya. What is the role of quantity surveyors in Kenya, as well as issues around the construction industry? And to have this conversation is the president of the Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya, who is QS Mutinda Mutuku. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. Let us just start with this question. What do quantity surveyors do?
Yeah, it's a question that we get quite often. But of course, I mean, lately, you know, a lot of people now understand what quantity surveyors do. And we find ourselves having to explain ourselves a lot lesser than before.
Right.
So what quantity surveyors do, they are basically in a very short way, if I could say it, just construction cost consultants. Yeah. So we are construction cost managers. That and contract administration, which is the legal side of construction contracts.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So what is your role in the construction industry? I mean, we have had so many issues in terms of the costing of projects in this country, you know. Yes. It's supposed to cost 1 billion, it ends up being 10 billion, and, you know, no one can explain where the 9 billion is going. Yes. What is your role in ensuring that construction projects are meeting their costs and at the same time serving the purpose?
Well, just from where we left off, is that variation of cost overruns are things that inherently happen in contracts and in construction. It is just the magnitude and the degree of that then would start to raise flags and concern.
Right.
In projects where from inception everything has been done properly, then you see lesser and lesser of such incidences where cost goes way beyond budget. Because a lot of the things will have been foreseen, and where things are not foreseen, then the provision on contingencies then ought to cover that without overshooting the contract budget astronomically. So it also depends then on what, because the figures that you mentioned are huge. Hardly will you find a building contract that goes several times over. Okay. And if it does, then there is reason for concern, and there's probably need to look deeper. On the infrastructure side, I guess maybe that's where we see such huge numbers of projects. In construction, hardly do we get many projects of that value. Well, up until now, when the government is doing massive housing projects, where the contracts are now bigger and they run into billions. Yes, but cost planning, involving a QS and things done properly, design, because a QS basically just costs designs. Yeah, it's nothing, we don't bring in our own aspects of the work. We just cost the design as given. So if you want to start to build before you excavate, then and we're in the team with other consultants who are the designers, engineers and architects, then we cost their design. And we tell you, this is how much it will cost you. Yeah. And then it is our work to control that cost. Where there are variations, we'll bring them to you. And variations are from different angles. Maybe change in design, maybe additional work, you know, different spec that the client wants to be done differently. And then, you know, and variations are justified given, you know, the route that they come through. Yes. So
when someone is doing a construction project, yes. Let's say you're constructing a house, we have seen that the construction industry in Kenya has had quite some challenges in the recent past. There have been some building collapses and all that. I would like to hear from you, is there a role that quantity surveyors play, or being that you are in the construction industry, what is your comment on that?
Yes, indeed, there's been quite a number of collapses, regrettable, some of them with fatalities and loss of lives. Of course, others just loss of property, third-party property. From our perspective, and I'm not trying to exonerate us from all this, but each consultant and each player has their role. Our role is the cost part of the building. So if you tell us, cost this, we will cost it. In terms of of course, we are also involved in supervision to the extent that we want to see what you specified, is it what that is being done? So to some extent, yes, we can be blamed for that. But a lot of it then will go to a lot of other reasons. There's been the initial part of the project design part, consultants are involved, and then the developer, ceases to see value for the consultants and goes on to implement their project. Of course, several things would happen. Is that you'd get substandard material, and they're there in this market. You'll get poor workmanship because there's no supervision, and even maybe the technical capacity of the executors that you're using. Yeah. So there's all this myriad, and there's also shortcuts. Yeah. The procedure of doing the work. For instance, if you're doing a slab or some structural work, then there's a process to cure, so that it gives strength to be able to build on more. But if you don't do it, you take shortcuts, then those are some of the reasons that you find then there are collapses. So I would say if we want, and there's a body that is charged with that. Yeah. There are bodies that regulate the consultants. There are bodies that regulate contractors, who are the main players in this. Yeah. The developers also have a body, but it's important that we all work together to make sure that we have such incidents. It really is regrettable that you would start a construction project and then our projects become, areas where people die. Yeah. It makes absolute no sense. Yes.
It's interesting that you bring out that aspect of people just ignoring the role of consultants, because I have spoken to engineers, architects, and now you, and a common theme that is coming out is that it seems as though Kenyans, majority of them lack the ethics when they are doing the project. So they will involve the consultants at the start, as you say. Then after that, they're like, we're good now. We have the numbers, we have the approvals. We can go into our construction and we do our own thing, right?
Yes.
So what would be your message to people who are watching, Kenyans generally, about that?
My message is simple. You're avoiding the cost of a consultant. And then you're exposing so much of your money because you're trying to avoid this little amount that you pay a consultant to be your eye, to make sure the lots of money that you're investing in this is taken care of and is safe. Because, for instance, pick a collapsed building. First of all, you've lost all the monies that you put in that collapsed building. 2, you've incurred liabilities if there are fatalities and injuries of people. And then 3, if there's damage to other people's property, again, further loss to you. In the name of, you are avoiding a few thousand shillings and exposing your millions of hard-earned money. It makes no sense at all.
Right. Yeah. So it's important from start to finish to involve the consultant.
Yes, it is important. And you've seen where consultants, professionals are involved properly, projects run smoothly. Yeah, you will find things flowing and working. You will not find, for instance, a sink that is put at knee level in your house that you have to bend. Some of those things. You'll not find a switch that is put on the opposite side of the door, that you open in the door and you have to turn around and switch on the light.
Yeah.
A lot of those things may seem simple, but they are thought out because it starts from design. So where will the conduits run, where the wires run, so that where will the door be positioned. So there's all reasons to use professionals and consultants in your construction.
It's funny you mentioned that there's a clip I saw, or a picture I saw online. Someone had put like a staircase onto the toilet, so you have to go on a staircase onto the toilet. Anyway, so back to issues about quantity surveying, project delays. What causes project delays? Again,
many things, and I say many things because I'm also involved in arbitration of construction disputes and as an arbitrator.
Okay.
And you see disputes coming from different angles. Time overruns and delays in construction. You find either the scope was not properly thought out at the beginning, and these are some of the things that will also affect the cost, the overrun in cost. The scope that it's growing, that keeps growing. And that's what I began by saying, with proper planning, at design stage, we sit down and design together, client brief, the consultants, and then involve the contractor quite early. Then you minimize these risks of cost overrun and delays in delivery of the project. Of course, the other thing is that you find a developer, and this also developer will be anyone, private or public, the government, also not remitting their monies in good time when they are, because what we work with is a system of work is paid in stages, interim valuations, and they're paid. If you don't pay you pay the contractor, for instance, the first certificate, and then the second certificate you withhold, then the third, and you're delaying your own work. And I've seen a lot of that, it is part of being ready. Again, back to planning. By the time you want to build, then think about source of your funds. Be ready to execute.
Right. You'll continue with that thought in just a little bit, Bwana QS. Let's the conversation on the construction industry and the role of quantity surveyors in that particular industry. And I am with the president of the Institute of Quantity Surveyors of Kenya, QS Mutinda Mutuku. Thank you very much for staying with us.
Okay.
Before we took that particular link, you were telling us about why project delays. Yes,
and I was just attributing all of it to largely to planning. Planning from the onset in terms of design and having a schedule of work and how to operate, and then also planning in the sense that the developer needs to have the funds ready or identified sources ready for funds for the construction. And then this leads me to a verse in the Bible that sort of also supports that thinking, that before you start to build, and of course the role of a QS, and it's Luke 14:20-30. It just goes to showing you how old this profession is. And it says, if I can just quote, which one of you intending to build a tower will not first sit down and calculate the cost tower, lest he begins to build and fails in the project and the tower stalls. Yeah. So it tells you that, of course, a lot of these things rise and fall at resources. So you find the delay will occur, the contractor has not been sufficiently funded to proceed. And I was telling you before we broke off that we execute projects in stages, and we also pay them in stages. Yeah. We issue what we call interim valuations as surveyors, and which are certified by the designers, architects, engineers in interim certificates. And therefore, if the developer is not able to honor one of those certificates, then it cripples the contractor, who is the executor, and then also delays the project. Of course, there are other reasons, but this is a reason that is well within us. There are reasons that will be, of course, beyond the control of the parties. Yes. Right. But financing, in most cases, is largely one of the major
key reasons for the project delays.
Yes.
When quantity surveyors, most of the professionals in the built industry have for long complained that projects are given to outsiders, right? Yes. Is this the same case for quantity surveyors?
Yes, it is. The last time I was here,
yeah,
I was hosted here, I spoke about the case of unemployment and underemployment. Yeah, because what tends to happen, and this is in a lot of the foreign developers, is that there is no requirement or enforced requirement that they need to use our consultants.
Right.
Yeah. In a lot of the incidences, what we are getting is designs that come from abroad, and they're adopted here, and all we get to do is one consultant who stamps for purposes of approval. And that is why when you drive around our towns, pick for instance Nairobi, you'll see a lot of construction. And you'll be forgiven for thinking that there's a boom in construction. But it's a very skewed boom. In this country, where professionals in the built environment are so few, how do they go unemployed when there is an apparent boom? You look at the sites, some of them don't even have siteboards. To put a siteboard is part of the law. If you're building, you must put a siteboard. That shows who is developing, what are they developing, who is involved as consultants, who is the contractor. in some, you'll see site boards, and all they say is what is being built, and of course they have maybe the consultant who facilitated the approval, and none of the other consultants. So yes, in a sense, there are instances where there are practitioners who will come and practice here illegally. Of course, the work of weeding out those our regulators is the Board of Registration for Architects and Conservators, and there is the Engineers Regulation Board. But yes, to answer your question, the biggest part is developers who do not use the services of consultants. Yeah. And then there goes links to the earlier question you're asking about collapses. Yeah. How do we have consultants on paper, but this person does not have supervision, either designed and left, so you're running. And besides the cost and the capex nature of the construction, it's the risky nature of a construction. And mostly, before you start going up, when you start going up several floors, and that's what we've seen, weight coming down on people.
Yeah.
Now we are seeing another phenomenon where for the longest, we were not doing that level of excavations. You've seen some of the depths of those excavations.
Yeah.
That in itself is a risk. Without proper supervision, then you've seen some of those excavations cave in, and cover up and kill and injure people. So consultants are underutilized, and I think that we've just gone full circle. This is where we've begun. For myriad of those reasons, plus others, that we have opened our market to be an environment where anyone comes, a foreigner, and does what they want. Of course, the bit where a foreign professional comes and practices, there are fewer, but they are there. Yeah, there shouldn't be any, because the moment someone does that, you're denying our people.
The local
talent.
Yeah, and they are qualified. It's not like they're underqualified.
Let me tell you, in these professions, you will rarely see a student who scored less than a B+ in KCSE. It's B+, A-, A's. And they're walking around with beautiful certificates. They went to university, got second class upper, first class, but they're unemployed. The irony of it is the numbers are so few. And what appears to be we are doing well, why would they not be absorbed in? That level of unemployment, it makes no sense at all. That for us, we could expose ourselves to that level and waste our very good brains that would walk around trying to find alternative ways to make a living. Yes.
So how do we, from a policy environment, tackle this? Because as you said, it's quite the paradox, really.
Yeah.
There's a booming construction industry, but for some reason, the few professionals that we have in this country, most of them are jobless. How do we do that?
It's in this country, it's never a shortage of policies and laws and regulations.
Right.
They're all there in place. It's the implementation. And it's one person, two people beginning to stand and say, what are we doing to ourselves? Why can't we do things right? Like, for instance, myself, I have quite a number of years of practice. I can't just walk into another jurisdiction and start practicing. Well, it would happen here easily. Ask one of our developers or contractors if they went into another jurisdiction, whether they will go there and jump onto a site and start working. What would you let us happen here? And even start working without proper approvals. You have no consultants, you just no supervision, you're just running your own site. Yeah. So it is us to take a step back and reclaim our country in a sense. I know there are many sectors and many areas where we ought to do better, but now we are talking about construction.
Right.
It is us deciding. We have laws. When are we ever going to start implementing them? We must not only implement so that it benefits me directly. Yeah. If it is, we are guarding against my brother, my sister, other people. And I guess we all have a duty, yeah, moral, or even call it from above, to sometimes do things that don't necessarily have to benefit me directly, just to do the right thing, so that the other person finds an environment that is better for them to be able to thrive. Yeah.
Right. So what would be your message to, because what are the actionable steps? What have these other countries done that Kenya is not doing?
They just have, it's just enforcement of their laws.
Right.
Like for instance, in the case of developers and consultants, we have regulators. Mm-hmm. How do these people find their way? And we walk around and drive around these sites. Is in there one of these regulators who stops and asks, by the way, where are your approvals? So who are your consultants? Who is your architect? Who is your QS? Who is your engineer? Yeah? Is there some periodic way of, checking this work? Do you meet? Something? Because sometimes you find us running when there's been a catastrophe. Mm. When someone has been doing the wrong things for a long time, yeah, we become more reactionary. Why can't we have a deliberate effort that a regulator tells themselves, I am in charge of these professions? Pick, for instance, architects and conservators. Yeah. Even as a regulator, do yourself do a study. Yeah? Levels of unemployment in the people that I regulate. And then ask yourself, then in our study, what could be the causes of this level of unemployment? Take it upon yourself, and you can see the constructions. Go find out, why aren't these people utilizing these professionals that I regulate? Mm-hmm. Because that is how to ring fence the environment that you regulate, and make sure these professionals are gainfully employed, because you are charged with regulating them. So what, do you just sit in the office and require them to pay you levies and fees, and that's it? Mm. Do you go home happy that you've done your work, when there is people's children whose only fault is that they chose these careers, and which they worked hard for, and in the end, they're unemployed? And you sit in your office day in, day out. You come in the morning, you leave. So does that, how it is, we have to start being human. Yeah? And to say that I will feel satisfied also when I'll get a salary, but I've seen today I've helped a life. Mm-hmm. That individual who was working jobless, because of me following through with the policy,